The miracle on the Han River, where the people have been the sole resource the countries had to rely on, given the scarcity of natural resources. They've been instrumental in driving the remarkable economic expansion and making the miracle. South Korea was among the poorest nations after the Korean War in the 1950s. Nevertheless, they have since rebuilt their economy from the ground up. With a per capita income of $35,000, South Korea is now among the richest nations in the world. Let's discover the miracle that was once like pie in the sky. South Korea is an East Asian nation, located on the Korean Peninsula's southern tip. They are bound to the north by North Korea's Democratic People's Republic, the Sea of Japan to the east, the East China Sea to the east, and the Yellow Sea to their west. Approximately 45% of the peninsula is made up of South Korea. Although there are numerous mountains in South Korea, there are not as many as those found elsewhere in the globe. Tropical evergreen jungles grow in South Korea's Jeju Island and throughout a limited area in the south from the high humidity and rainfall. There are also over 3,000 volcanic islands surrounding the peninsula. They come in all shapes and sizes. The capital city, Seoul, also the largest city in the nation, serves as the political, economic, and central hub. To the south of Seoul, a major conurbation known as Greater Seoul is made up of nearby satellite cities, all of which have seen significant urbanization. In the 1970s and 80s, new towns were built all around Seoul, including Gwacheon, Pudang, and Ilsan. South Korea aspires to create amicable and cooperative international ties. They have diplomatic ties with 191 nations as of June 2020, and to further advance their culture, 42 Korean cultural centers run in 32 nations. Korea has had civilization for at least 10,000 years. According to archaeologists, Mongolia and Siberia are the ancestral homes of modern-day Koreans. When Dutch commercial ships grounded on Jeju Island in 1656, they had fishermen who were the first Europeans to arrive in Korea. During their 13-year jail time, a single man managed to get away and go back home. His stories encouraged European businessmen to visit Korea. Yet till the 19th century, their boats were not allowed to dock in Korean ports. With so much potential seen, Korea must have looked like a treasure trove to them.
We're rich! We're rich!
China and Japan deployed forces to bring an end to a rebellion in Korea in 1894. They later engaged in combat with Russia for Korea, which Japan eventually won over in 1910. Following Japan's defeat in World War II, the Allies seized control of its territories, including Korea. Americans remained in the south, while the Soviets controlled the north. After that, the Korean War started in 1950 when the communists from the north attacked the south. Over 2.5 million people, including Chinese, Americans, and Koreans, died in the conflict, which lasted until 1953. Since then, Korea has been split, and the war was never declared to be over. In for a penny, in for a pound. The relationships between China, Korea, and Japan hang in a delicate position since the beginning of the 21st century. A record of decades of violence in the 19th and 20th centuries, a lack of confidence and trust impair chances for a better age of peace and collaboration in the 21st. It's like the three countries were putting a cat among the pigeons. East Asian people are trading and interacting culturally more and more these days. Are they friends now? Yes and no, like a can of worms. Let's see why. South Korea's ties with its massive western neighbour, China, are growing more cordial. They have a genuine curiosity with China, and in the past few years, the number of South Koreans travelling to China for business, tourism, education, and investment has skyrocketed. What about the relationships between South Korea and Japan? Very poor in terms of popular sentiment and public diplomacy. Japan was ticking all the right boxes. Since 1910, when Imperial Japan conquered Korea and controlled it as a colony for 35 years, South Korea has been wary of Japan. Their hostility was fostered by Japanese attempts to repress Korean language and culture throughout the occupation. They also disagree over land. What about relationships with the United States? Although most South Koreans, according to analysts, still view the US-Korean friendship as the cornerstone of their security relationship, sentiments are changing with the course of time. Determined and patriotic, the younger generation of South Koreans are less aware of the Korean War and less thankful for American involvement in the conflict that claimed the lives of nearly 3 million Koreans. Also, they perceive such friendship to be an American plan to enforce its values. In addition to opposing South Korea's attempts to engage with North Korea, the US has taken steps to strengthen its relations with Japan. Here comes the red flag to a bull. We can see from the opinion polls conducted in South Korea indicate that the Bush administration's foreign policy, which included the war on terror, the tough posture towards North Korea's nuclear weapons, and especially the invasion of Iraq, is extremely unfavorable here. They can jump down the US's throat. Do you think South Korea relies on the United States to make a better economic performance? The economic ties that South Korea has with the US now are very different from those after the Korean War. They have developed into one of the US's most significant economic allies in the Asia-Pacific region and a key ally in international economic forums like the G20. The country is no longer reliant on US aid and is a global economic force unto itself.
We're rich! We're rich!
The process wasn't easy as, money doesn't grow on trees. Over the past 60 years, a strong and varied trade and investment partnership has grown between the US and South Korea. With $134 billion in two-way trade in goods and services in 2012, South Korea ranked 7th among US trading partners, and the US ranked 4th among trading partners with South Korea, following China, Japan, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. South Korea is a destination for US exports of high-tech goods, including equipment, electronics, aircraft, and chemicals. A significant market for US agricultural exports is South Korea. In 2012, US agricultural exports to the 27-member European Union came to little over $6 billion, or somewhat less than $4 billion than total to South Korea. In exchange, the US purchases goods such as TVs, cell phones, and cars. There is also a substantial investment tie between the US and South Korea. Despite the fact that China is quickly overtaking the US in terms of foreign direct investment, the US continues to be the biggest investor in South Korea. They gave China a run for their money. The US made $1.5 billion in direct investments in South Korea in 2011, mostly in the fields of wholesale commerce, professional, scientific, and technological activities, manufacturing, and finance. Concurrently, South Korea made $6.2 billion in investments in the US, mostly in the mining, insurance, and finance sectors. They've previously invested a large amount of money in American auto and television manufacturing facilities. South Korea must be like a cat that ate the canary now. It is an economic powerhouse. The nation made every attempt to increase exports, like jumping on the bandwagon. It begins with basic goods like clothes, textiles, and shoes. Then the government concentrated on developing increasingly complex hardware-based goods for heavy industrial sectors, including automobiles, TVs, steel, mobile devices, and semiconductors as exports began to increase. Large industrial conglomerates dominated by families were created as a result of the government's strengthening of collaborative connections to assist a few frontrunners in these industries. The economy in South Korea moves like a bat out of hell. They have become the world's 5th biggest exporter of products and services and the 11th largest economy in terms of GDP. In terms of total car production, Hyundai and Kia together rank 3rd. Samsung and LG have emerged as the world's leading display manufacturers. Korea's position as a developed economy was upgraded in July 2021. What about the role of startups in the economic revival of the country? Actually, with a technological advantage in hardware and manufacturing-based industries dominated by big businesses, the nation has managed to emerge as a global economic powerhouse. But in the 4th industrial revolution age, they have been working to employ startups to foster this kind of disruptive innovation, making the delicate balance between industrial giants known as conglomerates and startups even more important. Not everyone has traditionally associated Korea with being startup friendly, as their government believes that money makes the world go round. Here is how they encourage startups. The government startup assistance programs, such as the Tech Incubator Program for Startups, have been essential in this recent development. The program is a state-led incubation program that identifies and supports potential firms by carefully pairing them with government financing. To maintain and strengthen the growth, South Korea created the Ministry of SMEs and Startups in 2017 to carefully monitor numerous startup assistance programs. In 2021, venture capital investments in Korea businesses surpassed 7.7 trillion won, $6.4 billion, up 78% over the year. In 2021, the quantity of new employment generated by startups exceeded the total number of jobs generated by the 4 biggest conglomerates put together. Seems perfect, right? No, nothing is perfect. Here is what South Korea is hiding: shrinking population and low fertility rates. Many countries worldwide are facing the possibility of a declining and aging population, maybe none more so than South Korea. They've had the fastest ever decrease in fertility in human history during the past 60 years. We can see the average number of children a woman has during her reproductive years is known as her total fertility rate. With the exception of Spain, China, and the Ukraine, South Korea is the only nation in the world with a fertility rate below 1 kid per woman. Alarm bells started to ring. There will be significant effects on South Korea from this lengthy and sharp fall. It may impede economic expansion, which would lead to a change in the path of a decrease in wealth and a smaller population in the nation. Sounds like they've bitten off more than they can chew. Why did it happen? The government's adoption of a population and family planning program, as well as an economic planning program in the early 1960s, marked the beginning of South Korea's fall in fertility. By then, the 1950 to 1953 Korean War had wrecked South Korea's economy and society, leaving it suffering. It is like South Korea is going to hell in a handcart. As more couples came to understand that having fewer children would frequently result in an improvement in family living conditions, this further contributed to the decline in fertility. The transformation of South Korea from a country with a high fertility rate to one with a low fertility rate was made possible by both the family planning and economic policies. It's like a recipe for disaster, right? Everything seems to be coming at roses. With a greater variety and openness, South Korea will be able to develop into one of the world's top innovation hubs, ready to produce the next big businesses and pull off the next miracle on the Han River. Thanks for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to receive more content. See you in the next video.